India's on display, its capital's on display, its prime minister's on display. Hello, everyone. I'm François Picard. Welcome to a special edition from New Delhi at the eve of the G20 summit that's being hosted here in the capital. We're in the beautiful Sundar nursery in the heart of New Delhi. More on that, perhaps, in a moment. A lot at stake, and there's a mix of new and old. The streets here have been cleaned, swept. Some of them are under lockdown. The stakes are high for what's going on inside of the conference hall, but the stakes are also high domestically. Yes, this is seen by many as a launch pad for Narendra Modi's run for a third term as the country's prime minister. We're going to be talking about the challenges that face what's now the world's most populous nation and the Hindu nationalist BJP party that's now been in charge for a decade. It's a pleasure to introduce for this show, first off, he's a political scientist, Nalin Mehta, the author of The New BJP. Welcome.
Thanks very much, François.
Delhi is where you hang your hat.
That's right.
Okay, so you know the city well. Perhaps more in a moment on where we are, right in the heart of the capital. With us as well, Zarin Oisho. She is environmental attorney and the head of the India program at the Institute for Commerce and Sustainable Development.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here. And it's Institute for Governance.
For Governance and Development. Thanks for the correction.
Of course.
All right, welcome as well to environmental activist Shubham Pandey. You're the head of the advocacy group There Is No Earth B, an advocacy group that does a lot of canvassing.
Right. So we actually work on issues related to policies by the government, and we make sure that we stand against the government on the issues that have to do with climate and environment.
All right, we'll be asking you later just how much you're able to keep the government honest as this nation of 1.4 billion moves from the country to the city, which is something that's been going on over the last decades, and perhaps in a process of being accelerated. One of the challenges, none of the many challenges that journalist Jyoti Malhotra has been covering. You are founder and editor of the brand new news website, Avaz South Asia. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And
we'll be talking perhaps more in a moment about the article you posted for the print.
That's right.
Just on Monday here in the Indian capital, one in which you talked about the fact that the capital has been prettified, as in pretty. How do you say it? How do you pronounce it?
Prettified. It's, Delhi's capable of being a beautiful city, and it has become one for the G20. That's correct.
It's been prettified, and there's been a face that's been omnipresent in all of that. Navodita Kumar explains.
Across New Delhi, it's hard to miss these banners. In the capital and throughout the country, the Indian presidency of the G20 is on display in every nook and corner. And all eyes are focused on one person, Narendra Modi. The government has allocated over 100 million euros for the summit, a staggering figure that is pinching this economist.
990 crores spending on this kind of jingoism, it doesn't suit the people, it doesn't benefit the people. But there are huge challenges, there's poverty, there's hunger, which we need to deal with as far as it's concerned, and the government should be actually concentrating on that.
Citizens, how India is taking the lead on the global stage, and how it's all because of the efforts of the Prime Minister Modi. This spokesperson of the ruling party, the BJP, refutes claims by critics that the G20 is being used as polling campaign for next year's general election.
India is becoming a big country, and this kind of a small investment is required, is warranted to further showcase and also propagate our strength to the world. The benefits will come in a large way to the country, not the Prime Minister, not an individual, but to the country of 140 crore people.
The authorities are being criticized on multiple fronts. In the name of beautifying the capital, several slums like this one have been recently demolished.
Because of G20, this demolition happened. The government of Delhi wants it to be clean, but they don't care where poor people will go.
They didn't let us settle anywhere. We have kids, daughters. Where will we go? We are on the road.
Hiding the poor from the eyes of the world leaders, paradoxically at a time when India itself has proposed fighting global hunger as one of the top priorities at the G20 meeting.
So GOT Malhotra, is it window dressing, what's going to be happening over the next 3 days? Or is it 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards, taking the occasion to make some urban improvements?
So first of all, François, I think we all have to understand, I mean, you know, if somebody comes to your house, you're going to shine up your house, right? You're going to clean it up, you're going to sort of, you know, do a second sweep if you like. So I think that's what Delhi is doing. Now, having said that, at what cost? So if some of this infrastructure is going to stay, I think we're all for it. But, you know, Delhi is looking really beautiful, and we just hope that even after all the world leaders go back, we hope it will continue to remain beautiful. But I think that's the question, at what cost, and whether, and, you know, the fact is that India is a poor country. We are a poor people. So for us to be ashamed of the fact that there are poor people living on the streets, I don't think we need to do that. There are poor living on the streets because they don't have homes to go to, or they've recently moved from the villages to the big city in search of work. You know, COVID has been really terrible on India. So these are the wounds that you know, India has been suffering. I don't think we should be ashamed of it. Certainly not when people from the world come to India, but like I said earlier, the world is coming to Delhi, and we are proud and we are happier that the world is coming to us. So we are kind of cleaning up the city as the government is doing, and I'm really happy that it's happening.
Nalin Mehta?
So I think we should expand this conversation beyond Delhi, because one of the most interesting things about the G20 and India's presidency of it has been a democratization of how an event like this is held.
Yeah.
We're focusing on Delhi, like Jyoti was mentioning. I think we should remember that about 200 G20 meetings were held in the run-up to this summit in 60 cities. And many of them were held in BJP-ruled states, many of them held in non-BJP-ruled states. So in that sense, if there is going to be a lasting legacy of the G20 of the Indian presidency, which comes by rotation, it is democratizing it on a much larger scale. And by the way, I think that's a continuation of a template of foreign policy that Narendra Modi started originally with bilateral diplomacy. When Angela Merkel came, when the Japanese Prime Minister came, when the Portuguese head of state came, all of these meetings were not held in Delhi. They were held in other state capitals to showcase different aspects of India. And I think that's very much part of a template of diplomacy that the Modi regime has adopted.
Shubham Pandey, is it pride you're feeling? How do you feel about India hosting the G20?
I feel proud of it, because India has been a great country, and to have G20 presidency in India, it is a great opportunity for us to showcase our cultural and heritages and other aspects. The only concern I have is the greenwashing part of it, where we actually say that we are doing something, that we are concerned about the climate aspects of the country, and will be targeting a few things to achieve the goals we have set. But the policies that we have got in our hands are actually not on hands. And the beautification part of it, when it comes to the beautification, if it is coming at the cost of dwelling the slums in the cities, for example, in Badarpur border, we have, I guess, dwelled a lot of slums over there. And if this beautification is coming at the cost of poor people, then I don't understand if this is actually ethically good for the G20 presidency, because it is coming out in public, and I guess that would harm more than do good to the Indian people.
Is the India that Narendra Modi is selling, Zarin Oisho, an accurate one, an accurate description of it?
Yes, absolutely. India is a great land with many aspects of it which are now being taken from India as we know it to the world. And the fact that we're hosting G20, you know, we are also, like Jyoti said, we're a poor country, we're still developing, and there are obviously challenges that one faces. And those challenges are the challenges of any other developing country in the world. So we are struggling with education, we're struggling with aspects of a growing aspirational society. So as much as that is true and an accurate description, there is also an aspect of India, which is the way we are growing as a country in terms of GDP, in terms of the last mile delivery for a country with over 1.4 billion people. With the
just to explain that concept maybe for our viewers, though, because it's one that we're also seeing on, there's so many different slogans next to that, the omnipresent picture of Narendra Modi all over town. And one of them talks about the last mile. Explain what that means.
That basically means that in India, we're a socialist democracy. And what that means is that we have, for the poorest of the poor, a lot of socialist policies and socialist plans. So the last mile delivery that the government prides itself on, and as Indians we all must, is how policies that have been prepared at the national level are being implemented on ground. So like Shubham said, I think it's going to be, time will tell how we do implementation of other things, but an example of one last mile delivery would be the digital inclusion of everybody on the banking system. And another one would be the LPG schemes, for example.
Gas cylinders.
The gas cylinders, liquefied petroleum gas.
So that's an interesting aspect, and I'll put it to you. Nalin, there was a lot of coverage in the West when there was this what was called demonetization, and it involved what was it? Something like 500 million people getting access to the internet by the same token. At the time, it was tumultuous. Now, with hindsight, how did it go?
So I think I want to add to what Zareen is saying. Yes, demonetization was tumultuous, yes. But one of the things India is selling or showcasing to the world this time is not just its cultural or civilizational heritage or the claim of being the 5th largest economy in the world. India is talking significantly about digital public infrastructure. It's a very core part of the presidency. And what that means is that in the last 10 years, India has created a new kind of a welfare state. A lot of people think that Narendra Modi's party, the BJP, is a one-trick pony. It's only about Hindu nationalism. It's only about a certain kind of ethnic relations. But it's not that. One of the reasons why Mr. Modi's won 2 terms is because you change the nature of the relationship between the poor and the state. And that was because of technology. The coming together of the cheap mobile phone, cheap data, and a unique digital ID system created a system where 500 million people were brought into the banking net. 800 million people during the coronavirus period. One of the reasons why India survived the coronavirus period was 800 million people got direct benefit transfers of money into their accounts through their mobile phones. About 18 million houses have been built by the poor by money transferred into their accounts through the mobile phone. And I think, and now with UPI, 46% of the world's live fintech transactions happen in India. So what India is now showcasing, when we think about digital disruption, you think about the Silicon Valley or the West more generally, but I think with digital public infrastructure, this is all state-led, by the way. And that is a new model that India is showcasing. About 80 countries currently want to align with India to take these aspects of this overseas.
So the glass half full?
I was just actually going to say that, François. I mean, Nalin is absolutely right. What Narendra Modi has done, our Prime Minister, he's been elected 2 terms, and as you know, we have elections coming up next year. It's an incredible achievement. And I think that's why he's so popular, because he goes out there and he tells the people, by the way, he's very charismatic. You know, his oratory is magnificent. There is no other leader like him in India. That's why he's likely going to come back as Prime Minister. Having said that, so I think all the achievements and all the data that Nalin just rolled out is bang on. But I would just say one more thing, Nalin, which is that Narendra Modi is riding on the success of the previous Congress party, the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, whose government actually began the whole push towards digitization of India's infrastructure. And listen, every Prime Minister must take things forward. All I'm saying is Narendra Modi should acknowledge and credit the people who've gone before him. You know, it's not like
But that's politics.
Of course, it's politics. But having said that, I mean, this is also India. It's not just the BJP that is India. India is more than the BJP. It's bigger than the BJP, right? And you will agree with that, and so will Nalin.
Right.
So having said that, in these sort of infrastructural, non-political kind of spaces, you should say that, yes, what I'm doing is not just me, that the sun didn't rise when the BJP came to power, but that India is also, much more than the whole is more than the sum of its parts, I would say.
Shubham Panay, this access to digitalization that was brought up by Zarin and how it's accelerated the transformation of India. It's access to credit for people who are able to transfer money to one another. It's got practical day-to-day positives. It's also a direct access, isn't it, for politicians to constituents. I asked the question to you since you're part of an advocacy group, and you too must do canvassing thanks to social media.
Right. The digital part of it, as Nalin said, that we have had a lot of benefits from the digitalization, but I feel, I totally disagree. Maybe it can be in parts, but I disagree that there have been Jan Dhan accounts for a lot of people, but how many people do actually use the Jan Dhan accounts to transact anything? Okay. When COVID happened, there were n number of migrant workers who were actually facing issues, and we had to actually rely on the Manrega data to transfer money or to benefit them for any subsidy or anything. Okay. So maybe digitalization has been a good thing, but there are parts, in parts it has been benefited to the people, and there have been parts where it has been used just to showcase that we have done this thing, but on the ground, the reality is different from what it comes out in the data.
Has digitalization helped cement a winning machine for the BJP?
100%. I think the amount of data banks that we have created under the BJP, the amount of digital infrastructure and the data that comes from there has certainly cemented what the BJP does or considers when it's making political decisions. And, to the point that Jyoti was making earlier, I completely agree with you that there needs to be acknowledgement of what has been done by the predecessors or the governments before the BJP in 2014. But I think that is what we are talking about. That's the government of 2023. The numbers, political numbers are so decisive that there is no need to acknowledge. And there is this sense of implementation victory, because they've been, the idea might be great, but the implementation has only been done because there was someone standing with a whip.
So the opposition, Nalin Mehta, has formed this coalition, which has the acronym which spells the letters of India. And is it a fair fight? Or with what we've just been discussing, is it not a level playing field when it comes to entering this campaign period?
It's a democracy. Of course, it's a fair fight. The opposition is, the Congress has just given the BJP a hell of a whacking in the Karnataka state elections. The BJP has lost elections in the last couple of years in different states. So if it wasn't a fair fight, if it was a loaded field, the BJP would not be losing state-level elections. At the national level, it's a different game. At the national level, I think the real issue with the opposition is the BJP has by far become the predominant party of the village in North India in particular. It's built a cadre base, it's the largest party in the world. And I think the real challenge for the opposition is going to be, can they put up combined opposition candidates beyond the rhetoric in how many seats? And also, there are out of the 543 seats in the Indian Parliament, in the lower house of the Indian Parliament, there are about 200 odd seats where the BJP and the Congress are in direct competition. How much of these seats Congress can win? Because the regional parties often do better than the BJP.
Because you heard Jyoti say that there's not much suspense going into next spring's election.
No, I think the question, François, is, listen, it's going to be a fascinating 10 months, okay? Because we will have a couple of state elections coming up, and in North India, which is where large parts of the population vote, the Congress is expected to win at least 1 out of 3 states. Listen, nobody knows. The Indian voter knows. But having said that, I think the big difference between the BJP and this opposition alliance is that the BJP's got this incredible hunger. They want to win. at any cost. And that's the point. What's the cost that we as Indian citizens must pay for the BJP to come back to power? Now, if you are hungry, I mean, so listen, we have to suffer the costs and both the profit and the loss. But if I think the opposition alliance is being really smart right now because the BJP keeps saying, Narendra Modi is our candidate, who is yours? And they know, the BJP knows that the opposition has 20 faces, they don't have one. But the opposition is also being smart, for the time being at least, by saying we don't have a candidate, we're going to fight state by state by state and hope that 1 + 1 + 1 adds up to 3 or more than 3. So they are going to do the hard work, or try at least and do the hard work on the ground. The question is, are they going to match the BJP's drive, determination, hunger, the cadres on the ground? The cadres, people who go from door to door to door and say, give us your vote. And that's what Indians want. They want to come to your people, to your door and say, we want you to vote for us.
Just very, very short answer here. Narendra, you said something. You said that the BJP is perceived as the party of North India. Explain what that means.
So the BJP's electoral dominance comes from 11 Hindi-speaking states in North India. In the past, in the southern parts of India, it expanded into Karnataka historically. It's now got a huge expansion in the northeast of India happening as well. But the core of its electoral dominance comes from the North Indian states and West India as well. But I do want to say this.
So it's not just about religion.
It's not just about religion. I do want to say the BJP in the past, there was a caricature of the BJP 10 years ago, which was that it's the party only of the rich, of the upper caste, and of the town dwellers. However, today the BJP is very much a party of the poor. It's very much a party of a social rainbow coalition across castes, and it's very much a party of the village as much as it is a party of the towns in North India in particular.
Quickly, I'll add, François, Uttar Pradesh, which is India's largest state, has 200 million people. If Uttar Pradesh was an independent country, it would be, I think, the 8th or the 9th largest country in the world.
4th largest country.
Okay, there you are. Now, with that kind of, and it's run by the BJP, the chief minister is of the BJP.
And it's got 15% Muslims.
So if you have, a state which sends 80 members of parliament to the parliament, 80 people, then you already have a huge advantage. But then that's the thing, they have this drive and this hunger to win state after state, and no state is more important than UP or Uttar Pradesh.
You heard Narendra talk about the differences with 10 years ago. We've been talking about the chaotic rollouts at times of demonetization, which, according to the panelists, since reaped its fruits. We've also seen on Narendra Modi's watch things like land reform, which have drawn protests. We'll see how that plays out. All these are going to be big topics heading into the next election cycle. More broadly, this is a nation that is moving and has been doing so long before Narendra Modi came to power, from the country to the city. And that too has its cost, particularly in this post-COVID era. For more on this, Navodita Kuman went back to school, to college campuses, to get a view.
This group of students at Delhi University has gathered to talk about politics, hosted by a youth organization.
Young people are the largest contributors to India's growth.
The hottest topic under discussion is the role of Hindu nationalist Prime Minister Narendra Modi. For many students, India has emerged as a stronger nation under his leadership.
Now India is among the top 5 global economies of the world. Narendra Modi ji has fully stand up to my expectations. The level of patriotism which he possesses and the party possesses is altogether different.
But many others say they are suffering because of the policies of the Modi government.
सबसे ज़्यादा जो इन्फ्लेशन होता है, मतलब बेसिकली वो महंगाई वाली भी चीज़ है. एजुकेशन इज़ ऑल्सो देयर. अभी इसी सेमेस्टर में माई फीस इज़ ट्वाइस द टाइम जो मैं पहले पे कर रही थी. वो पहले 3,000 समथिंग था, नाउ आई हैव टू पे 6,000 समथिंग.
With over 50% of India's 1.4 billion people under the age of 25, political activist Sudhanshu Kaushik believes it's crucial for the government to hear their voices.
You see the Prime Minister, and that change starts at the top, promoting more young people. But the reality is there's a lot of young people who are absolutely dissatisfied too, right? Economically, socially, politically.
Despite being one of the fastest growing economies in the world, unemployment under Modi's prime ministership has been the highest in the last 4 decades. But for young professionals, there are other bigger issues to be worried about.
There has been so many polarization under his rule, and he has been the cause for so many conflicts between the various religious communities, specifically Muslims and Hindus. Honestly, I would like to leave India as soon as I can because I believe there will be problems if it goes on like this.
According to a US consulting firm, the Indian Prime Minister is the world's most popular leader with an approval rating of nearly 80%. And most of his supporters are young Indians.
Most of his supporters, young Indians. Zarin Oisho, your reaction, obviously this isn't scientific, what those students are saying, but these mixed reviews that you're hearing.
Yes, I mean, before I answer the question, I think I would want to caveat that by saying that I think the greatest privilege of my life has been to be born Indian. And while India has challenges that I spoke of earlier, one that is common to any developing country, it is very important to understand that the two greatest ingredients that make India what it is today is the fact that we are a large economy, we're a growing economy, and the second one is that we're a democracy. And those two elements jointly make us a very viable, suitable and preferred alternative to a China on the global front. So the clip that we just watched is one which is very important to show where India needs to really put in the effort. We have a decisive government with Narendra Modi, but I think what needs to be done and taken very seriously is what do you do with this growing population? We have literacy rates that are going up. We have more and more students go through college. But the problem is the quality of our graduates. How employable are they? So the one thing that the government...
And some say fewer women in the workforce.
Fewer women in the workforce, but that's precisely the point. How do you bring the women out to the workforce, to join the workforce? And then how do you, even the men and the women jointly, how do you train them to become more employable? Where are the jobs coming from? And I think that is one that can be solved for by investing more and more capital for skilling, actual skilling.
I just want to, I think, Zareen is sort of half my age, and it's, and we all want to hear what young people think, because this is, you are the future. But, I was really interested that you put these 2 points, first big economy and then a democracy. As an older Indian, I would actually reverse that, and I would say democracy is our biggest strength. And it's also being challenged in so many ways, right now. And I think with 10 years of the BJP, we've faced the kind of challenges to democracy.
So the slogan of the G20, it's one world, one family, one future. Is India practicing what it preaches?
Well, the Sanskrit phrase is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is a beautiful phrase. It basically, this is what it means: one world, one family, one future. Now, that's a loaded question, I think, François. Is India practicing what it preaches? Who practices what they preach? I'm not sure any of us around this panel does, but that's not the point. Narendra Modi was elected to practice what he preached. He plays good cop, and his ministers and his cabinet play bad cop. So, for example, he will never say anything about the lynching of Muslims in India. He has never said that. Never. He goes abroad and he's fated the world over. Saudi Arabia has given Narendra Modi its biggest accolade. He was in Greece recently. The Christian, the Greek Orthodox Church, gave Narendra Modi its biggest accolade. Now, we are very proud that the Prime Minister of India is receiving these prizes, if you like, internationally. But what do you do at home? Do you paper over the fractures? Do you address them? Do you talk about why Muslims are being treated as second-class citizens? Do you talk about why Dalits, or the lowest caste, why they are being hammered on a daily basis? Amit Shah, the Home Minister, just accused a South Indian politician, a young man, not much older than Zareen, called Udaynidhi Stalin. He talked about how the upper castes are treating lower castes, And Amit Shah, the Home Minister, said that this is an insult to Hinduism. It's not an insult to Hinduism. I'm a Hindu. I don't think it's an insult to me. I think we need reform within our religion. So for the BJP to say one thing in one place, which is what the Prime Minister does, and for its other leaders to say other things, it doesn't match up. So I would really hope for the Prime Minister when he speaks to me and when he goes out to campaign for his party during the 2024 election, to tell me what is the India that he wants.
So Nalin Mehta, this is, I guess, at the core of your book. What's in the DNA of the BJP? Is it identity politics? Is it pitting one group that's in the majority against others that are in the minority?
So there's no question about it that the idea of Hindu nationalism is very core to the idea of the BJP. But the fact of the matter is that's been the case for 50 years now, both with the BJP and its predecessor, the Jan Sangh, before 1980. But it never won elections in the way that Modi is winning. Why is he winning? He's winning much more than he won. The BJP is winning many more elections now than it ever did, or even when it loses, it's doing better at them than it did before 2014 for 2 or 3 reasons. Because the idea of Hindu nationalism appeals to its core constituency, and that's remained intact. They are attracting many more Indians who are non-aligned, who are middle of the fence, because they see a better future for themselves under the BJP. And I'll give you an example. In the Northeast, the BJP is in power in several states where there are Christian majorities. In some states, 90% of the population is Christian. In UP, and Jyoti mentioned UP, 13 to 14% is Muslim. In Assam, where the BJP has just won 2 back-to-back elections, about 15 to 16% of the population is Muslim. Now, in fact, even in Muslim-dominated areas, in areas where constituencies where there are 50 to 60% Muslim voters, the BJP often ends up winning. That's not because they get more Muslim votes. That's because there's counter-mobilization. But I think there is an idea of development. It's Hindutva plus development. It's Hindu national identity and a return to civilizational pride and confidence, along with a significant amount of developmentalism and a significant amount of class war. I think the BJP is very much a party, positioned itself as very much a party of the poor in the last 10 years. And that's the difference between the old BJP and the new BJP.
Is it okay if I come in for a second?
Sure.
Just quickly. Nalin has really laid it out really well. I would just say one more thing, which is that one of the reasons why the BJP has been able to push its agenda so successfully is because he doesn't have an alternative. Narendra Modi doesn't have an alternative. Who is the face that I, as an Indian voter, can look at and say...
But you said that's a tactic of the opposition.
But the reason that's a tactic is, that's a tactic, it's not strategy. The reason that's a tactic is because they don't have one leader. And sometimes it works and sometimes... what the opposition is now trying to do is to convert its weakness into a strength by not having that one leader. But as a voter, I want to know what are these views that the alternative has.
So let's ask Shuman Panay. Listening here to Nalin Mehta's description, and your grassroots organization is one that helps provide those checks and balances, that civil society, that's a core element of any democracy that's sound. Does India's democracy work today better, worse than it did 10 years ago?
It actually works worse in aspect of climate activism at least, because a lot of times when I am talking to people, they're afraid of either signing the petition, talking about it, criticizing the government against the policies, because they are afraid that if they would do something or act something or speak something, then they would be maybe arrested, there would be cases against them of sedition or anything. Okay, so dissent has no place in today's democracy under the BJP government. So that is a problem that I face when I'm talking to people about the climate issues that we are working on. The other things that Nalin was saying, that maybe because they're winning in Northeast is because there is counter mobilization. Yes, there is counter mobilization. And the other part is they've always followed the central government. Whoever is in the central government, they always vote for them in the state governments as well. So that actually gives them hope that some things would be done for us rather than going against the central government and not getting maybe the funds or other things. So that is also a part of it.
May I?
Go ahead.
I do want to add one thing here, and something which Zareen was alluding to earlier. India is a nation that is changing. It is the youngest country in the world. 70% of India is under 30 years of age, and there's a huge shift on gender attitudes in India. So women in India traditionally always voted much less than the men. The last election was the first election in India where the women voter turnout rate was higher than the male turnout rate in 2019. And all the evidence shows us that in state after state after state, in the first election of Indian history, when more women voted than men, in all the key electoral battleground states, more women voted for the BJP than for the Congress. And that gender shift, and women traditionally always voted for the Congress. That's a big shift. I would love if somebody could answer why that's happening.
Isn't it also that you have women politicians in India across the political spectrum, right? I mean, Sonia Gandhi is not in active politics anymore, and she, of course, inherited her job from her husband, and etc. But if you look at the other political parties across the states, whether it's the Trinamool Congress in West Bengal, Mamata Banerjee is the
BSP.
The BSP, Mayawati. So the BSP is a big party in North India. So I mean, I think women politicians have. I think that's been the, that's why India is different from other democracies. It's because women were very much part of the freedom movement, and then that was sort of like a natural shift to becoming part of the politics of India, because you wanted to be part of the India story.
Zaranosha, what do younger women, to answer the question of Nalin, want? Because like we were saying, there are some statistics that point to women coming out of the workforce in India today, not entering it.
I think there are multiple reasons for the workforce argument. But as far as women are concerned, and like Nalin said, women in India have historically, like if you see the graph of women participation in society as whole, has only grown, has only improved. And we have several people making arguments as to what a gendered role must be for one that fits woman, according to whatever their idea of India might be. There are so many women out there that are fighting it. I am one of them. I am Indian as an Indian could get, and I am out there trying to break those stereotypes. The leaders that Jyoti mentioned, be it Mayawati, be it Mamata Banerjee, be it Jayalalitha, they are such powerful women in their own right. And, talking about politics in Uttar Pradesh, we have more women voters voting for Yogi Adityanath because of the law and order situation. I have people who
This is the hard line for a chief minister.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There was, I think one of, and maybe Nalin, you can talk about this a little more, but of the main deliverables of the political manifesto for BJP in the last election for Uttar Pradesh was law and order situation, which has improved significantly. And there is genuinely a difference on ground, because I went to law school in Noida, which is a city in Uttar Pradesh. I remember I was in law school 2010. The difference between Noida of 2010 and to now what it is 2023 is huge.
Can I just very quickly say, we had a big debate in India about girl students wearing the hijab.
Yeah.
You're familiar with hijab in France, right?
We've had debates too.
Yes, I know.
Yes.
And I have to say that actually we dealt with the hijab issue in a much better way than you guys have. And I'll tell you why. I know your argument, which is that everybody must be equal and the woman doesn't have the option. It's an argument that doesn't work. In a country like ours, by the way, and that's the middle path that the Indian Supreme Court found, which is that the girl student can be taken in her hijab, in her veil, which she wraps around her head, by her mother or father, up to the gates of the school or the college. But inside the school and the college, you have to take it off. And I think that's the idea.
Which is the rule in France, by the way, as well.
Even in the public spaces, I think you've had a lot of issues about women wearing,
burkinis.
But that's yes.
Yeah, but anyway, we'll leave France to you, and we'll leave France to you and India to us. But I'm saying, I think that's what's happening. So you have the triple talaq issue, which is, sort of men misusing the whole talaq, the idea of sort of divorce in the Quran Sharif. And Narendra Modi has, by the way, used that, and that's been demolished. But I think the hijab issue was dealt with so beautifully, and that middle path, that compromise that I think India sort of somehow tries to find and is able to do, sometimes, oftentimes we are not able as successfully, is an example of, I think, women coming out into the public space and demanding that they be counted.
But we were speaking with a colleague just yesterday who was worried, saying the old slogan for India, unity through diversity, was being put to the test.
I think that's also absolutely right, François. So again, it's the glass half full, half empty kind of story. I think Shubham talked about how freedom of speech and dissent is being clamped down, and I would completely agree with him, because the fear that you have in the streets of Delhi and elsewhere in the country, by the way, in BJP-ruled states, if you're in a non-BJP-ruled state, you can really speak much more freely. You can walk about the streets much more freely.
I disagree.
I'm so glad you disagree, because it shows that we can at least agree to disagree. But
So let me add to what Jyoti is saying. Look, I don't think anybody will defend state repression or things which impinge on fundamental rights and so on. And excesses do happen. But I do want to say that
so many more excesses are happening, and that's
I do want to say that in several opposition-ruled states, you say something on social media against the ruling chief minister, you can be locked up in jail. There are cases that have happened. So I don't think we should have different yardsticks. Two wrongs don't make a right.
For instance,
two wrongs don't make a right.
Recently, there's been an academic who wrote a paper investigating whether there was election fraud last cycle.
Yeah.
He was pressured to resign.
Yeah.
Would that have happened in the past, or is that a new phenomenon?
Well, I actually wrote a counter to that piece saying why that piece was academically completely wrong. So I can't speak to this issue.
Right. Was it worth him getting fired, though?
I don't think he was fired. I think he resigned.
Or pressured to resign.
Look, if you ask me, my own opinion on that, and I can send you the piece, academically it didn't hold up at all, and there are specific reasons on that, but we won't get into that now. Does that mean somebody should resign? No. Absolutely not. I mean, I can disagree with you completely, but I would defend your right to say it.
This example is a terrible example, by the way, because it should have been handled much better by the university and by the academic in question. And, this is not representative of the fact that India or the BJP government is clamping down on free speech and expression. I think Shubham's point that there is a general clampdown. I mean, we see it in the media. The media has become so much more pro-BJP. And one of the reasons for that is because it's a corporatized media. And that's why small web portals like mine are able to speak up for themselves. But that's because our stakes are much lower. But when you have big newspapers and big TV channels, they have to be pro-government. The cost that they pay if they're not that pro-government is very, very high, and I don't know if they want to pay it.
But I also want to counter that. I think that has been true historically for whoever's been in power. There have been media homes that have spoken extensively about how bad the BJP is. And in fact, we were interestingly just talking about Kashmir. So I'm Kashmiri. I'm a Kashmiri Pandit. I was born to Kashmiri Pandit parents, but I've never had the opportunity or the fortune to live there. And I do remember distinctly when the abrogation of 370 occurred. I will, of course, not go into the procedure in the...
Because we have 2 minutes left,
exactly.
So that's a long...
Yeah, but
that's a
the
whole
way
other hour.
the media depicted how sad the people were, the state of affairs in the state, that was absolutely inaccurate, because I was on ground in Srinagar at the time, and the taxi drivers, the waiters in restaurants, the people, the students in universities were very excited about having, just being normalized at that point, because there was so much tension that had built up over the years that had been, suddenly diffused. So I think there are two sides to every story, and our media has not done a great job of displaying the facts for what they are.
Right. We've seen Kashmir's status recently, though. When it was changed, there was a 2-year internet blackout in places. It was again one of these issues where there is this sense that there was a stigmatization of.
I absolutely agree with you, and I don't think shutting off internet is the right thing to do. It's a basic human right. But again, this is the half-baked story. There are also security consequences that nobody speaks about.
Shubham Pandey, our plane lands in New Delhi, and we find we open the newspapers and there's this discussion over what the name of the country is. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, so the debate is over India versus Bharat, and this has been sparked only after the opposition actually made a coalition and named it INDIA to actually counter the...
So not a coincidence.
Yes, it's not actually a coincidence. It has been in their minds after they thought that they won't be able to counter the India coalition. So they thought, why not make it India versus Bharat? I don't think it would make any difference to the next election. And this is just a futile argument. The common man doesn't concern themselves with any of it. In fact, in the constitution, it is written that it is India that is Bharat.
Yeah.
So it actually doesn't make any sense to have an argument on that.
All right, so there'll be a lot of work sorting the wheat from the chaff in the months ahead. A lot of work coming up over the next 3 days here with that G20 summit coming to Delhi. We'll be having a special edition from Delhi on Friday, so do join us for that. I want to thank you, Shubham Pandey. I want to thank as well Jyoti Malhotra, Zarin Oisho, Nalin Mehta. Thank you for joining us here from New Delhi for this special edition of the France 24 debate.